Welcome to the latest Greyhound Style Zoom. It's a special Zoom call today and is brought about following the announcement earlier today that Tote have done a deal with Toaster Greyhounds to introduce a brand new totalisator fixture which will result in significant reductions in tote deductions and basically deductions for the punters. As you can possibly see on the screen, well-known face to Greyhound folk, Harry Findlay, and the reason that I specifically asked to speak to Harry today is I know how close this is to Harry's soul, something that he's believed in passionately and something that's cost him a lot of money over many years to try and bring this kind of idea into formation. I'd like to know what he thinks about Tote's involvement and is this the way forward. So Harry, over to you. Welcome. First thoughts, what do you think of the Tote deal today?
To be honest, Floyd, I mean, it's hard to find the words because low margins is one thing and massively reduced pools is one thing, but to be involved with the Tote UK, who's got so much power, who runs the UK horses, the partnership with the Hong Kong Jockey Club, Swedish Tote, they're all about world pools, they're all about, you know, building a big business. And for greyhound racing to be more or less chosen as their low margin product, it's incredible news. I mean, as you say, I paid the price maybe for going for a low tote takeout at Coventry, but I can only dream about these margins of 5 and 10%. And what I'm guessing they're very cleverly doing is because they've newly taken over the Tote, because they've got their own website, they've decided that greyhound racing has been so badly abused by bookmakers and by the betting industry. Totes themselves gone up from 5-6% in the Second World War up to near 30% now at tracks.
I believe it's actually 33%. I was told.
Well, it's you know, it's like the Spanish model. I mean, it's horrific, and then you see what happens when you do that, and it only ends up one way. And I didn't see it stopping because there's no promoter ever going to knock down the thing. So it would take something drastic like this to happen. But the fact that it's happened at such an opportune moment, when there's COVID, when there's no people on course, and this Tote have managed brilliantly what they've done with the horses, because of course they took over last October from Betfred and everything, and then straight away they were struck with COVID. But thanks to their system, thanks to their algorithms, they've managed to cope brilliantly. And to be honest, we all know that greyhound racing is made for a Tote product. It's made for it. And with these crazy 5%, I mean, it's a dream. I mean,
what was your when you had Coventry? What was the best that you could have gone for?
Oh, I could only go down to 13s, Floyd, 13s, and I think I was sort of 8 or 9 in the place because I think some promote extra on the place, and I just get sick and tired of people losing all the time. I mean, at Coventry, Nathan Corden must be buzzing tonight because he said in that article that you put up today that he's going to get a better atmosphere at the track. Well, that is the biggest understatement that man will ever make in his life, because I just know I've never been to Toaster for a derby, but those big stands, they'll be full of Tote machines now, all operating at 10%. And the difference between, as you say, a 33% takeout and a 10% on course is just going to completely change the atmosphere, change the mood. And people forget about greyhound racing, Floyd. It is the only sport in the world that was made for gambling. And the people that made those dog tracks, they knew what they were doing. And they didn't have 30% or 27% or 24%. And they stood the test of time. I walked around, it's now closed, but the Flagler track, and that was built in 1922. And I know it's just tarmac now and it's poker only. The actual track is exactly as it was, built in 1922. Yeah. And the dogs haven't changed. The quality of the sport hasn't changed. But what has happened is greed. Over 100 years, the greed has gone. And up until they started increasing the Tote takeouts, greyhound racing was flying and could have carried on to do so with even. This is why when people said to me in Coventry, "Oh, no one's going to come in, Harry. No one comes through the turnstiles anymore." And we know that's the case. We know there's obviously other things they can do and everything. But the bottom line is that greyhound racing is the #1 betting product for me in the world. And I bet on everything. I done my brains last night on games. Just swore I'd never get involved again. Taking on a legend. I bet Green Bay massive. I bet we all love the Wilton. Why do we bet the American football late at night? It's great action. But it doesn't matter what it is. I know I'm the big. No, I love gambling more than anyone else I know, and I will always choose greyhound racing as the #1 buzz for gambling. If I had to choose red or black in a casino to save my life, I'd say, well, can I have a red and blue jacket dog and have a 2-dog race over 800 metres?
Yeah,
that's the way I'd go. Yeah. And I know that sounds simplistic, but the fact of the matter is, greyhound racing for decades, 5-6 decades, has been totally abused as a betting sport. And we wrote about it ourselves, Floyd, when COVID came out, and I said this is an ideal opportunity for the bookies to get their heads together and say, look, we're going to have no one on course. We're doing our own industry SPs. It's after the off. It's after Betfair have been smashed from 5 to 1 to 5 to 2, so we can return it 9 to 4 and everything's fine. But no, they had to double their takeouts near enough and start returning dogs that were backed on Betfair from 5 to 2 to 5 to 2, returning them 13 to 8. And it's taking the piss. And punters know that. Yeah. And now suddenly, Jamie Hart and the Tote have come along and said, hold on a minute, we've not got a time machine. We've got a 70-year time machine, 75-year time machine to go back to the time when 40% of people at dog tracks won money. Yeah. And it's going to change everything. And we're talking about 10% here, but the Tote and the Derby heats and those 4 cat ones are going to sponsor. They're all going to be 5% takeouts. Yes. This is incredible.
Yeah. I always thought. I spoke even to Hesketh when he first opened Toaster and said the ultimate for greyhound racing, because we're not built like Australia, but the ultimate is to control your own product and to control your own betting. And none of that was in place, but you were trying to do it sort of 10 years ago, or however many years ago it was now, I've lost track. You were simply ahead of your time because the technology wasn't there, but the idea was spot on. But at that stage, we didn't have the internet to the levels that we have. We didn't have companies like Tote out there to do it. It really is like a perfect storm, isn't it, now, for it all to happen?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can't get away from the COVID factor, which, has literally eliminated crowds and punters on course. So the fact that the Tote have kept the horses going so on such a level keel with the totes and turnovers. But the thing is, it's hard for me to work out. I've been thinking in my head the last few hours as much as I can, and it's hard for me to really pinpoint who's got the biggest advantage here out of this deal, the Tote and the greyhound racing. And I come to the conclusion that the Tote is even a better deal for the Tote because they are getting the best spectator sport there is. Yeah. Greyhound racing has got its own problems with antis, and who knows what might happen 20 years down the line. People like myself, and this gives the sport a chance. But whatever happens, Tote can't lose. No. Because Tote have got the power. They've got all the partners. They've got World Pool Days, Hong Kong, and they're taking £750,000 a race at Escott. 30 days of racing this year, they'll be taking £1 million a race in the win pools. Yes. And this toasted dogs will be going to Hong Kong. It will be going, and they're going to be betting, anyone who's got a Tote account will be betting 5% takeout.
Yeah, I remember having the conversation with Jamie, and I know you've known Jamie a long time, and he's, I think you'd consider him a friend. So Jamie Hart, obviously from Tote. The thing that struck me straight away was that he's clearly, I think, recognised as a whiz kid, but he kind of gets gambling in a way that I think some of the big companies almost seem to be run by accountants. They all that they want is their guaranteed margin, and it's got to be a big margin. We cannot possibly lose, and this is what we want to bet on. Hence, when we're dealing with the industry returns sort of 27 to 30% on graded racing, and around about 20% or over on open racing, those aren't the thoughts of a gambler, or the tactics of a gambler. They are tactics of an accountant who just doesn't get what gambling is about, clearly, and I think Jamie does.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, Floyd, because when I was struggling at Coventry, the reason I never had a partner, I had the great ideas and I never had a partner. My problem was Jamie Hart would have been that partner. I knew that he was a low margin Tote man, but unfortunately he was very influential with Hills at the time. Ralph Toppin himself fell out with Hills literally 3 months before I started at Coventry. and otherwise we'd have been batting together at Coventry. So I sort of, we're mutual friends of Eamon Wilmot, who was chairman of the Tote, and I know what his ideas are, and I know, and looking just at what he said already, you know, the fact that he's prepared to go down to that 5%, which, as we spoke earlier about Florida in the 1920s, they were 1% of dogs, 6% pools. White City, Wembley, they were all the same. There was 6% takeouts, and obviously greyhound, the Tote very cleverly realised that greyhound racing gives them a unique, as I said, perhaps even a more unique opportunity than the sport itself, because all the totes in the world are harnessed by the rebaters and the people who get the commission back and everything. And this new UK Tote, since they've taken over, are obviously hell bent on getting it down to a level playing field.
Yeah.
By harnessing the sharks rebates, getting them on a level playing field, and they're already talking, I believe, of having a club where people who bet on the horses or bet on the scoop six and jackpots with the Tote, they get 10% bonus on their winnings, which effectively would mean that they're literally on a level playing field with the very, very top professionals. This is a man in the street.
Yeah.
And if you turn the clock back 9 months ago, the rebaters were getting much more. There was nothing for the smaller players. The minimum stakes were 50p. Now you can play for pennies on jackpots, for trifectas, you know, because of what you said, because Jamie Hart thinks like a punter. And you described, he thinks like a punter, and he is a punter. Yeah. I'm sure he was on Kansas last night as well. But it's not just what you said about them all being like accountants, Floyd. It's more than that. They don't have respect for punters. They genuinely don't. I dealt with some of the top people in the industry when I was at Coventry, and they genuinely had a genuine lack of respect for me because I was a punter. Yeah. And that lack of respect goes right through. Punters are so disrespected. And I don't think anybody is more disrespected than the greyhound punters, because they've had such bad odds for so long, and they're continually known as losers or whatever. And, you know, they're not sort of, the horses is always dandy and the greyhounds have always got a sort of cloth cap image, where in reality, greyhound punters are the sharpest punters in the world. Yeah. And you've only got, you know, I've been doing a lot of greyhounds because of lockdown, and I like I did at Coventry, where I had the 7 cards for the algorithm. It was brilliant. And during the derby this year, I had 3 or 4 top cards and thought, but everyone knows greyhound punters are so, and this is why it's the perfect product for the Tote, because whatever you do at 5%, you got no excuses, you know. And Betfair have had it on their own because of this ridiculous industry SP. Betfair have literally, we all know what's going on, Floyd. 100 grand a race at Romford on a Friday night. They probably took 100 grand a race at Crayford Saturday morning on Betfair. But what did the bookies take? Next to nothing. So the whole market will get stronger because of this. Greyhounds will, the Tote, it cannot fail. I mean, it's impossible for thousands of dog punters not to have a Tote account by the end of this year's derby. And it will in turn knock the bookies in. That industry, I'll tell you something now. If anyone wants to lay me 2 on that in 6 months' time the industry SP is not as high as 130, I'll bet 2 on till my nose bleeds. Because you cannot completely take the piss out of dog punters who know the time of day, who know the price of everything. Dog punters will tell you who's going to lead, who's going to be. This is why I think greyhound racing still has such potential for the Tote, because I know a lot of young punters have been fed Ray Winston and first goal scorer at 7 to 1, and there's a lot of lost punters out there on football. Whereas greyhounds teach you so much, Floyd. Like, you were a kennel lad, same as me. I was a kennel lad. Greyhounds, you know, I've had a young lad working with me down here, and when he first come down, we've been doing the Aussie dogs every morning. And when I told him that greyhounds will teach him so much, I said, I can't explain to you how much you'll learn just from watching greyhounds with me, not just about dogs and betting, but about life. Yeah. And I'll swear he thought I was mad. Top university kid, nice kid. But 3 weeks afterwards, he knew. He said, you're right about greyhounds. And it's amazing. It's like I believe, I've always said a 16-year-old can go to White City, not know nothing about the sport, and in 3 weeks be an expert. Yeah. You couldn't do that in horse racing. Oh, not in 3 years. No, I did when I went dog racing. 3 weeks at Slough, 3 weeks at White City. I knew every dog, and I could tell you who would lead. And I was watching races with Jeff DeMolder at the third bend. Yeah. So, you know, that's what the Tote can benefit from greyhounds. And as I've already said, it's a two-way thing. I think it's the most exciting deal I've ever heard of in betting in my life.
Yeah, there's a couple of points I wanted to make. One is, of course, people, if they don't understand their history, is that greyhound racing, but for the Second World War and but for government absolutely screwing it and not attacking horse racing, which again people perhaps don't understand. They go, well, we're so much smaller than horse racing. Greyhound racing was absolutely hammering horse racing as a spectator sport and as a gambling sport, but for successive governments, Labour and Conservative. Had it not been for that, I suspect that today horse racing would be a very, very much smaller sport than it is. But it was very well connected. It had all the supporters in the House of Lords, and they looked after it. They made greyhound totes illegal, but not horse race totes. There were so many things that they did. So that's the first point. That ultimately, if you'd have spoke to somebody back in 1950 and said which is the sport that's going places, they'd have said greyhound racing, not horse racing. That's the first point.
And as you say, particularly as a betting product.
Yeah, particularly. The second point, and it was something when I was chatting to Jamie, we were talking about the big frustration that greyhound punters have at the moment. They can't get on, they can't get a bet, they dare to win, they get their accounts closed down. And I get emails virtually daily, or sometimes 2 or 3 in a day, where people going, why don't you tackle this? Why don't you have a go at whichever company? And they're all the same, so I'm not going to pick one out. And of course, the point that Jamie makes is that that's not a problem for the Tote. They're never going to exclude anybody. They'll welcome everybody in. They will take their money.
Oh yeah, I mean, and the great thing is that this will, as I said, I just said I bet 2 that the industry SP gets better, and it will. The Tote model will be so professionally done that the dogs will have prices all day. People will, this will bring so much prevalence into the market that I'm sure that they won't be stealing anyone's money. They won't be stealing. I believe that the ordinary bookmakers will take more than they're taking now because of the Tote. I think greyhound racing as a betting product will be massively enhanced by this. And we all know you ask 50 sports fans with a piece of paper and write down and say, right, make a list of all the sports in the world that can genuinely benefit or not be seriously affected to detriment by COVID. And there's only one sport you can come up with, and that's greyhound racing.
Yeah.
Because, with horses, the owners are falling away, and, there's always a chance that the jockeys, that something could happen. But greyhound racing is the one sport that is going to bring more, I was on Ice on Fire last year to win the Derby with telephone numbers, and it was a great buzz all year. But just say if the Derby had happened, and it would have been so massive for the sport. And this year we could still be without crowds this year and have a fantastic Derby at Toaster. Yeah. And I think everyone in greyhound racing will benefit from this, because I think that ultimately I was a kennel lad, you were a kennel lad, we all do different things in sport. I've been an owner, I've been a promoter, I've been a trainer with Don Cully, I've done everything because I love being involved with dogs. But I just think this is the right time to do it, Floyd. I'd see on the internet there's going to be a new movie out where people are talking about how they are with their dogs. People don't realise just the devotion, the love that's involved with dogs, and how much, when I was training my dogs, they used to sleep with me in my bed, Hockey Charlie and that, when he run, come and get the gold collar eats, come back, and, this is how it is. And I think at the perfect time, the ground's got the perfect product, and we've all been watching. Everyone's, as you say, moaning about not getting on. I know dog punters who are genuinely on the verge of giving it up. People are saying, I might bet on the Derby, and that's why there's so much interest in the Derby, because outside of the Derby, there was no open races. But now you've got Kevin Boothby at Toaster, got this commitment from the Tote for all these. Everyone knows now there's going to be top class open racing every Saturday night, and you can bet the 5%. I mean, I'll be staggered, Floyd, if hundreds and hundreds of punters don't get an account where they can literally, like I say, play the 5%. And like, punters can't get on now. You Tricast win that TV trophy final. I was dying to bet Tricast with some of the big outsiders for second and third, but it's impossible to get on trifectas. But they're going to do the lot, and it's all going to be at 5%. And the most important thing I've found out, Floyd, is that they've agreed that they're never going to go more than 10% on any dog products.
Yeah. So
say, for example, greyhound racing takes off and this is massive and bang, bang, bang. They're not going to say, oh, we're making money here, we're going to go 11 or 12 or 13. Impossible. Impossible. I will bet if Jamie Hart's in charge, and you know, the way these guys think, I know if anything, it'll be going down from 10 to 9. Yeah. And I'd bet 4. If someone said to me it's going to go from 10% to 11% or 10% to 9, I'll bet 5 on that it's 9. Because it ain't going to go to 11. No. They've made, you know, this is not a decision that's been made lightly. I heard rumours that it was going to start last year in Nottingham. I've heard this, you know, I've heard this was going on. I think you might know a little bit about that and things I was hearing, people talking. So a lot of work and a lot of time's gone into this. And this is not gimmicky. This is not this is not, you know, let's use the greyhound racing to get new accounts. And then when it starts going well, we'll put it back up to 15, 16. 5,850 billion, as Don Cuddy would say, a jillion to 1, it going higher than 10%. So that means that greyhound racing has got a bedrock, an absolute bedrock product. And that will give the dogs prices, it will give them a market, and all it will do for everyone in the sport is bring more interest, more structure. Like what they're doing with the horses since June the 1st when COVID started, and they come back and everyone thought, oh my God, what's going to happen? They've cut the big rebaters out. There's no one on course. But no, it's all there. They've got SP guarantees on the horses. So, you know, they're going to have SP guarantee plus 10% bonus, plus they've got that greyhound product. Yeah. You know, and I really can't find a fault in it. And, you know,
certainly when Jamie was saying to me that one of the reasons that he has this sort of ambition for this very, very low margin. And of course, greyhound racing was the key to getting into it, because he couldn't simply just go to horse racing and say, we want to do 5%. Given all the deals, all the commercial deals that they have with various organisations around the world, they weren't in a position to simply go, we're just going to do a 5% deduction. Well, at least because of the circumstances at Toaster, they could say that to Kevin. They could say, can we work? And we'll use this as a model to take to other sports, and also to go to the Far East if necessary, and say to those punters, we're dealing with a 5% margin here. You may never even have played greyhounds before, but a 5% margin, you just might fancy it.
So right. I mean, I got sidetracked earlier because that's what I was talking about, the margins. You know, the 5%, I think everyone has paid the dogs, and I think that people, you know, I think what Jamie said there is spot on, and that's what I got sidetracked before on was the fact that they can't do the horses at 5% because you have got rebaters in the pool, you have got other people taking out. So greyhound racing has got to benefit from that unique opportunity that it's even possible to bet to 5%. Yeah. If it hadn't been for the Tote taking over the Tote last year, it hadn't been for the fact that suddenly internet betting's become more prevalent, and you can go via tote.co.uk. Greyhound racing has been very lucky, and so has the Tote. This is why we talk about that perfect storm. They're lucky that they have got a new website. So it's not just that it's 5 and 10% on greyhound racing, folks. It's that there's absolutely no rebaters. There's no pros getting any. It's not just that. It's so glad that you picked up on that, Floyd, because this is so important. It's not just that it's 5 and 10%, the best margins any sport anywhere. Let's be fair, the 5% is better than going. All casinos now have 2 rings. So you're effectively betting better than red or black on greyhound race. Yeah. With a national Tote. If you'd have told me that 15 years ago, I'd have said you were crazy. It's the sort of thing you can only dream about. But it's happened because of the unique situation where suddenly, you know, Peter Jones, the chairman of the Tote 30 years ago, had his hand tied because William Hills and Ladbrokes would say, we want more, like Oliver, we want 12, we want 13, we want 14. And this has always been a problem for the Tote. Yeah. But not with dog racing, not with tote.co.uk, or not with Toaster at 10% on course, because they will all be not just low margin, but guaranteed 100% rebate free. They are absolute level playing fields, each man for their own. And I think it's jackpot. And there will be a jackpot. There's no doubt about that. I can guarantee you, Rod, you know, they're already partners with the V75. It's the best Scoop 6 type bet on the planet, the Trotters. It has bigger turnover than anyone. And they're already involved with ATG. So you'll have a greyhound version of the V75 coming off the Jamie Hart printing machine very shortly. I'm sure about that.
Yeah, thanks for finding me sort of a few minutes, because the way I saw this, and I don't profess to be any kind of gambling expert, but the way I saw this was, this really is a monumental or start potentially of a monumental move, and I think it really took someone with your kind of nous and background to be able to hopefully get over to anybody that's watching just how significant this is today. This isn't just another deal. This is an absolute groundbreaking deal, I think.
Oh, I mean, Floyd, I mean, to be fair, you supported my ideas of lower margins at Coventry, but and you stood by me there at Coventry and thought it, could. I mean, I remember Evan Osborne screaming at me, talking about Bet365 and, calling me a mug and saying that, you can't bring it down. But if Greyhound Racing, I was sure that at Coventry, it was the only chance Greyhound Racing had to have that kind of product at a place like that. And now I am convinced this is the big hope for Greyhound Racing, because it is ultimately, it goes back to them, whether you are a kennel lad or a trainer or whatever part of the sport you're involved in, you must never forget it is primarily a gambling sport. So if you've got a unique gambling sport, and for 40 years all they've done is abuse it, make it worse, effectively take the piss, and suddenly someone comes along and does this for the sport at the right time and puts the money, we're back in the races and back in the, I think you're right. I think groundbreaking, or move the goalpost, call it what you want, but it's certainly what Greyhound Racing at this particular moment has been crying out for, and I wish the Tote all the best.